For years, Mel's hole existed as little more than a strange tale passed around during late-night radio shows and hidden corners of early internet communities. A man named Mel Waters said that on his remote Washington property, there was a hole that didn't just look deep, but felt like it had no end at all. No bottom, no echo, no clear reason for being there. It sounded like something science could dismiss right away. Yet the story continued to resurface again and again. Not long after Mel shared his account on the radio, he said that men dressed in black appeared around his land. Access to the area with the hole was suddenly cut off, supposedly because of a nearby plane crash. Mel said he was offered money to leave the country, with a warning to never discuss the hole again, and then he disappeared from the public eye. During the 2010s, a new kind of search began. Researchers, engineers, and former military specialists brought tools designed to map the underground in detail. In early 2024, a quiet, privately funded expedition was brought together in secret. The people involved were not television ghost chasers or casual adventure seekers. They were field engineers, former defense industry workers, and experts in underground mapping. Professionals who had spent their working lives dealing with locations that most people will never set foot in. At the heart of their mission was a new generation AI scanning system, built from photogrammetry, LiDAR, ground-penetrating radar, and electromagnetic field sensors. The goal was to create a complete three-dimensional model of Mel's hole, measured down to tiny details, and to let the AI study the data in real time, so it could catch patterns that human observers might overlook. Before any tools were lowered into the opening, the group established a protected zone around the site. Every piece of hardware was backed up with extra power sources and shielded data drives that could resist electrical surges and strange interference. The structure they assembled at the rim of the hole looked like a mix between a deep-sea lifting system and a small launch tower. Hanging from it was a long scanning drone shaped like a cylinder, covered in sensors. Its surface finished in dull black paint to cut down reflections. The first seconds of the descent were uneventful. The drone's lights pushed into the dark and showed walls that were smoother than anyone on the team expected, almost like they had been polished, as if something had sliced through the ground with careful precision. The AI marked this right away as unusual. This one was even, regular, and it felt deliberate. At 200 feet, the AI reported something even more unusual, a total lack of tiny fracture lines. In normal rock, there are always signs of pressure and movement, the marks left by the shifting earth over time. Here, the surfaces looked perfect. The AI used resonance data from the pulses the drone sent into the walls to estimate material density, and the outcome was startling. The shaft did not match the known basalt and sandstone in the region. It appeared denser and tougher, and in some areas it simply swallowed the signal without sending anything back. Then the system detected a second anomaly. At around 340 feet, the LiDAR readout showed narrow horizontal shapes built into the walls, thin ridges spaced with perfect regularity, wrapping around the entire circle of the shaft like evenly placed rings. At 500 feet, the electromagnetic instrument suddenly spiked for a short burst, twisting the drone's compass readings out of control before the software was able to steady the system again. Out of all the layers of scanning data, the AI produced an early three-dimensional map for the first 600 feet. What appeared on the display did not look natural. The walls were perfectly parallel, the reinforcing rings repeated at exact 50-foot intervals. At two locations, there were slim side passages leading outward into what looked like chambers, too regular to be normal caves, and too exact to be random breaks. The farther the system scanned, the more it stopped resembling a simple hole and started to look like a constructed shaft, a passageway built to go straight down and continue without end. What the AI showed them next will leave you amazed. If you're as amazed as I am, comment the number 1 below, and keep going deeper with us. At 342 feet, to the eye it looked like a shallow recess framed by a metal ring. But the AI's cross-section showed a hollow space nearly 20 feet long. The density map hinted at material that was not stone, and reflected like manufactured objects. Temperature readings made it more unsettling. The rock around the chamber stayed cool, yet inside were 3 warm zones, steady and separated by air. The heat was too controlled to be natural, as if something inside retained power. A second chamber appeared at 511 feet. It did not align with the metal rings, and looked carved straight into the wall. Its entrance was sealed with a material that absorbed most of the scan. Still, the AI traced 4 tall cylinders arranged in a grid. Electromagnetic checks showed a strong rhythmic pulse, slow and steady, almost like a heartbeat. It was not just storing power, it was using it. The third chamber was smaller and angled upward. It had no heat or electromagnetic activity, but the depth scan showed one tall, uneven shape, narrow and unlike any machine or natural formation. The AI marked it as organic-type geometry. If you like this video, don't just stop at the like button. Hit that hype when you watch on your phone too. It only takes a few seconds, but it helps this video reach way more people, and see what happens next. The red indicator on the AI display blinked once, then became steady. Motion was detected inside a sealed chamber far below the surface, in a place where no living thing should exist. The drone thermal camera replayed the moment. One of the 3 warm spots in Chamber 1 shifted slightly to the left, only a few inches. A brief movement in the scan, but it was enough to push the AI into high alert mode. A quiet tension filled the control tent. The lead engineer said it must be an error, yet his voice sounded unsure. The AI had already labeled the anomaly as low-frequency kinetic activity. Then an electromagnetic spike appeared. For the first time since the descent started, the drone compass spun wildly, and its orientation feed glitched before settling again. The AI placed the data together and showed that the electromagnetic burst happened at the exact moment the anomaly last moved. It might be mechanical, one team member whispered, though no one seemed persuaded. If it was mechanical, how long had it been active? Decades, centuries, and why had it been locked away? The group debated whether to lift the drone immediately. At that moment, the AI predictive module activated and advised a close-range scan with high resolution. This was not a random choice. The system classified the anomaly as a priority subject because of the mix of motion, heat, and electromagnetic activity. They decided to lower the drone another 8 feet to reach the level of the access seam to Chamber 1. Everyone stared quietly at the model. The next scan wiped the display, leaving only static for several seconds. After that, the video feed from the drone broke down badly, tearing in horizontal lines, and then stopping completely. The AI tried to reconnect. It spent 37 seconds with no result. Then, in the frozen frame, the light inside the chamber changed. It was not caused by the drone. Something inside had reflected the light back. It showed 2 small points of brightness, placed exactly where eyes could be. The feed went dark. Did you notice anything? Leave a comment below, and let's talk. The final file the AI transmitted before shutting down was not a simple scan, but a map. It showed the shaft continuing far past the limits of their sensors, stretching downward for miles. 2 faint lines appeared across the rendering, linking Mel's Hole to distant coordinates far outside Washington. When plotted globally, one endpoint landed in a remote area of Nevada, the other in an uninhabited region on the opposite side of the world. The team first assumed corruption in the data. Yet seismic and satellite records from both sites revealed the same unusual traits found near Mel's Hole. There were electromagnetic spikes, disrupted wildlife patterns, and local stories about areas that people avoided for generations. The Nevada site was the most concerning. Its geological profile nearly matched Mel's Hole. Identical diameter, similar reinforcement structures, and a density reading suggesting another engineered void. The overseas location looked empty from above, but decades of thermal archives showed brief underground heat pulses almost identical to those detected in Mel's sealed chambers. The AI summarized its findings with a single conclusion: probable linked structures. If true, Mel's Hole was one part of a wider system whose purpose was unknown. One more detail stood out. The reinforcement rings stopped roughly 1.9 miles down. Below that point, the shaft narrowed and was lined with a material that absorbed every type of scan they used. The AI could not map deeper. It only detected a faint vibration. After hours of filtering, the pattern became clear. 2 short pulses, one long, then a pause, repeating in a steady cycle. It might have been a coded signal, a warning, or communication of another kind. The implications were severe. If multiple locations shared these traits and one chamber inside Mel's Hole had already responded to the drone's presence, then the vibration was likely not random. It suggested an activity. It suggested awareness. The team understood that Mel's Hole was no isolated mystery. It was a channel connected to something far larger, and whatever existed below that unreachable depth might not remain silent forever. And just when the team thought the mystery had peaked, something happened that proved they were being watched. The team didn't celebrate when the drone reached the surface. No one raised their voice. The device looked untouched, but its casing was strangely cold. Worse, its solid-state memory held nothing. The footage of the moving anomaly had been wiped clean. They first blamed the electromagnetic spike from the chamber. but the off-site server still contained fragments of telemetry. Those logs showed the data hadn't been lost by accident. A deliberate overwrite command had been issued milliseconds before the feed cut out. No one on the team had sent it. The AI labeled the event as a remote intrusion. Somehow, something had accessed the drone during descent, despite its secure, hardwired connection. As they reviewed the surviving fragments, new problems appeared. Workstations began failing one after another. The mapping engineer's laptop crashed and wouldn't reboot. The thermal terminal overheated until its power supply burned out. Within an hour, 3 machines were dead. The patterns soon became clear. Each one failed the moment someone tried opening files related to the chamber anomaly. Then came a message on the team leader's satellite phone. The device wasn't connected to their network, yet an encrypted text appeared with no sender and no trace in the logs. Not long after, 3 unmarked black vehicles rolled up to the edge of their perimeter. They idled silently in the fog, no lights on, no one stepping out. After several minutes, they backed into the forest and vanished. That night, the off-site server reported repeated intrusion attempts. Instead of deleting the last fragments of data, the attackers began copying them. Moments later, the team lost all access. The hosting provider said the account had been closed under a government directive, offering no documents or details. Their final secure backups were gone. Only a few portable drives remained, protected because the team had physically disconnected them in time. Those drives were locked away under armed guard. The threat was no longer environmental. It was targeted suppression. Someone wanted every trace of the anomaly erased, just as the shaft itself seemed designed to hide whatever lay inside. Before shutting down, the AI produced one last file, a reconstructed image showing the shaft plunging far deeper than expected, and linking to structural patterns at 2 other sites across the planet. But here's the part almost no one knows. This isn't the first time Mel's Hole has appeared in classified files. The Quantum Reanalysis did far more than review physical readings. It compared those results with older records, including recently declassified material from the Department of Energy and the Department of Defense. Within these files were references from Project GNOME, a series of underground nuclear tests carried out from the 1950s to the 1970s. These documents mentioned a vertical anomaly in Washington state that showed non-reflective cavity behavior. The records never used the name Mel's Hole, which only became known years later when Mel Waters went public. Yet they described a shaft almost identical in size and nature, a vertical opening about 9 feet across that produced no echo when sound was sent into it. The Quantum Review suggested that the feature now called Mel's Hole may have been logged under another label long before anyone outside government circles heard of it. This may explain why early satellite platforms such as TerraServer showed blacked-out tiles in the area during the late 19th, the same time period when Mel first shared his story. The Cold War documents also described early attempts to investigate the anomaly with the tools available back then. Researchers recorded unstable electromagnetic activity and unusual seismic responses, results similar to what modern teams report when dealing with a possible space-time effect or a region containing unfamiliar material. Although the documents avoided naming the site directly, they repeatedly mentioned a 9-foot shaft in the same general area that showed non-gravitational behavior and no sonar return. If this anomaly had been discovered during the Cold War, the findings may have been classified along with anything that was uncovered further below. Still, even government records didn't explain everything. So researchers turned to a tool powerful enough to detect patterns hidden for decades. Don't forget to subscribe and follow the channel to discover more interesting things. What makes this analysis different from earlier attempts to study Mel's Hole is not only the increase in computing strength, but also the way the data was handled. For the first time, researchers placed every file they had into a quantum machine learning system. This included old magnetometer notes, audio recordings from around the site, photo metadata, and signal traces that had long been treated as interference or equipment issues. The results surprised everyone. A standard computer detected nothing but background noise, yet the quantum processor found one clear model that tied all the strange readings together. It pointed to a localized shift in space-time similar to an early form of a wormhole. That finding alone was unusual, but the system revealed something even more striking. When it examined decades of radio static from the region, it detected repeating low-frequency pulses hidden deep in the noise. These pulses matched the same mathematical layout used in error-correcting codes found in quantum communication. This showed the signals were not random at all. They held patterns designed to protect information, similar to how modern communication systems work through interference. The meaning of this is important. It suggests either that an automated signal may be active near the site, or that a non-human source could be producing these patterns. The quantum system did not state what the hole is. It only demonstrated that the data around it contains structured mathematical patterns that should not appear by accident, pointing to something far stranger than a simple natural feature. And once the quantum system started breaking down the old eyewitness claims, one of the strangest stories suddenly didn't seem impossible anymore. Among the most unusual parts of Mel's account was the story of lowering a bucket of ice into the hole. When it was pulled back up, the ice felt warm, yet stayed fully solid. And later it was said to ignite. For a long time this was dismissed as impossible based on normal science. But the quantum analysis suggests another possibility. Recent studies in quantum thermodynamics describe theoretical materials that can remain solid even at high temperatures, if they exist in a quantum coherent state, similar to a Bose-Einstein condensate. In everyday matter, heat breaks atomic bonds and causes melting. But in certain quantum states, particles act in unison and can hold their structure under extreme conditions. The quantum model proposes that the ice from Mel's hole may not have been simple H2O, but a quantum-stable material that absorbed heat without shifting into a liquid. This idea explains why it felt warm while staying frozen. Once removed from whatever field kept it coherent, it may have taken in moisture and released energy as it lost stability, making it seem like it was burning without normal flames. If the material were a type of exotic quantum solid, it would act differently from anything found in the natural world. These materials can only exist under very specific conditions, and if the environment inside Mel's hole provided those conditions, the material could stay stable only while it remained there. When taken into normal air, it would collapse in a sudden and intense way. The quantum analysis does not identify the substance with certainty, but it shows that its behavior fits models of unusual matter described in advanced physics. But if you think burning ice was strange, the next finding pushes the mystery into territory science has barely begun to understand. When researchers used quantum tomography to map the site's possible geometry, they found a repeating interference pattern at regular depths, similar to a Moiré effect formed when two slightly misaligned grids overlap and create new shapes not present in either grid. What makes this discovery important is that the pattern matches what is predicted by the NDES-CFT correspondence. This theory in modern physics proposes that our three-dimensional world may arise from information stored on a two-dimensional boundary. In simple terms, our reality could be a projection from a flat source, similar to how a hologram produces depth. The quantum model suggests that Mel's hole might not be a physical opening at all, but a flaw in the projection layer of spacetime, where a misalignment reveals part of the underlying structure of reality. Leading physicists at universities such as Princeton and Caltech have studied holographic universe theories for decades. The math behind string theory even depends on a framework like this, although solid evidence has been rare. The idea may sound extreme, yet many researchers already question whether gravity and space are projected forms of information. If so, Mel's hole could be the first place where the deeper framework of reality shows signs of distortion. All these discoveries raise a bigger question: how did this entire legend begin? A man calling himself Mel Waters phoned Art Bell's late-night radio show, Coast to Coast AM. His story immediately gained attention. He claimed there was a strange hole on his property near Ellensburg, Washington, and he believed it had no bottom. Mel said the hole was about 9 feet wide and lined with a stone wall. What set it apart was its depth. He described lowering a weighted fishing line into it, using spool after spool, until he had dropped roughly 80,000 feet of line, which is more than 15 miles, without touching anything at the bottom. Over several call-ins between 1997 and 2002, Mel added more unusual claims. He said animals avoided the hole and acted strangely when they were near it. He described radio interference around the site, with broadcasts from earlier decades suddenly coming through. One neighbor reportedly threw a deceased dog into the hole, only for that same dog to be seen alive days later. Mel also said he lowered a sheep into the pit, which came back dead and contained a tumor-like mass that held a fetus with human-like eyes. Mel claimed that government agents later seized his land, telling locals a false story about a plane crash. They allegedly paid him a large sum and moved him to Australia to keep him quiet. Despite widespread interest, no proof of Mel Waters' identity or the hole was ever confirmed. Reporters found no record of anyone with that name owning land in Kittitas County, and people who searched the area found only old wells or abandoned shafts. For many, the tale became an odd but unverifiable legend. That view began to shift only when new computational tools allowed researchers to examine the story's claims through a different and far more technical lens. So after everything, the scans, the anomalies, and the quantum data revealed, what does it all actually point to? It does not confirm that Mel's hole is real. There is still no verified physical evidence showing where it is, or what its true properties might be. What the quantum work provides is something more subtle but just as interesting. It shows that if the claims about the hole were accurate, and if the long-reported observations were genuine, then the phenomenon cannot be dismissed as a simple deep cavity or an unusual piece of geology. Instead, it points towards something much more significant, possibly a true space-time disturbance, a flaw in the laws of physics, or even a form of technology based on principles we have not yet grasped. The quantum computer did not prove Mel Waters' account. What it did was place these strange claims inside a scientific framework that modern physics can study. It showed that there are existing theories, such as wormholes, distortions in space-time, or holographic projection errors, that could offer explanations for the reported events without breaking the rules of physics. This does not mean every part of the story should be taken as fact, but it does mean the entire legend cannot be dismissed outright. The claims may sound unbelievable, yet the physics they connect to aligns with some of our most advanced ideas about how the universe functions. Quantum computing did not tear the story apart. It gave it a context that science can analyze. That alone makes the mystery harder to overlook. The real question is no longer whether Mel's hole matches every detail from those late-night radio calls. The question is whether there is something truly unusual in that area of Washington, something that could help us learn more about the deep structure of reality. And that is a question worth exploring with every scientific method available. Conclusion: the story of Mel's hole began as a late-night radio tale that most people dismissed as elaborate fiction, but the quantum analysis has transformed it into something far more significant. We're no longer dealing with folklore or urban legend. We're confronting evidence of phenomena that challenge our most fundamental understanding of reality itself. What do you think about the quantum analysis findings? Have you ever encountered anything that defied conventional physics? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let me know what aspects of this investigation you'd like me to explore further. The truth about Mel's hole might be stranger than fiction, but it's a truth that deserves to be told.
Thanks for being with us. Leave a comment, like to show your support, and remember to hit that subscribe button for more exciting videos. See you next time.